Hi everybody and welcome to Observing with Webb for October of 2015. October is going to be an interesting month if you're an early riser. We've got Jupiter. We've got Jupiter, Mars, and Venus all dancing around each other in the morning sky. We do have an Orionid meteor shower, which is it's going to be an okay year to see it. Not great, but okay. And it's also a good month to check out those fall and winter constellations, since the nights are getting darker more quickly. And eventually in November we'll have daylight savings time gone, but that's November, not October. Don't worry about it. So anyway, let's just start off by talking about the planets. Before I go, I hope you guys had a good time at the eclipse. It was very cloudy where I was, and if you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see two videos that I was able to take with the camera, somehow I'll get a link to some of my other pictures up there. If you're friends with me on Facebook or look at Twitter, it's up there as well. But anyway, so for this month, October, that's what we're talking about. Planets that you can see. So let's just go let's go actually to the beginning of the month, and then that's September, move that to October. Let's look at sunset, and let's look to the west. Now if we look to the west, as you can see, Saturn is up there in the west. Now the thing is that it's going to be fairly low in the sky. In fact, it looks like it's only 20 degrees high, which is not much. That's 2 fist widths held at arm's length. So even by the time it gets dark, it's probably down to 10. So it's going to be hard to see. Not impossible, but hard. So if you want one last chance to see the rings, now is the time to do that. So that's going to be in the southwest around sunset. So then let's see, what other planets can we see? Well, Ceres, yeah, you can't see that naked eye. Neptune, can't see that naked eye. Alright, let's fast forward time. Let's keep going, and still don't see any planets. And keep going. Oh, hey, there's Venus. So Venus is going to pop up, let's say around 4 a.m. And then if you wait a little bit longer, about 4:45 a.m., Mars will pop up, but that'll be low on the horizon. But don't worry, they keep getting higher and higher. Oh, and there's Jupiter. Okay, so that's what we're going to see in the east in the morning. Now, let me go through the month as far as what this is going to look like. Okay. I think that's going to be the easiest way to describe this. So, in fact, let's just go for sunrise, but let's go minus about a half hour. Okay? So here we've got Venus, Mars, and Jupiter all in the east in the morning. Now, I've been noticing right now, Venus is really bright. It's easy to see, even up into like 7 o'clock category. And Mars is tough to see, but Jupiter's down a bit lower down here, so Venus will be bright, very bright. Jupiter will be a little bright, and then Mars is going to be dim, so it's going to be hard to see. Mars you're going to have to look for when it's darker, okay? But let's say it's like 6:15, the dawn is starting to happen just a little bit, and so this is what you'll see. But if we go through the month, that's October 2nd. If we go through the month, you start noticing that Mars and Jupiter all get very close together. And in fact, on the 8th, the moon actually joins the party for a little bit, making a nice line of planets and the moon. And then on the 9th, the moon is actually right next to Mars, right here. But what you notice is they keep getting closer and closer and closer together. Oh, hey, yeah, Mercury makes an appearance. It's not much of one. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. But yeah, so you see all of them are getting closer and closer together. And then Mars and Jupiter actually are less than a degree apart on October 18th. Okay, less than a degree. And in fact, if the sizes are representative here, you might be able to get Mars and Jupiter in one picture. But Jupiter's going to be much, much brighter. So I don't know how that's actually going to work. But anyway, let's just keep talking about this. So really, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter are very close together. You don't see this very often, and Mars and Jupiter are less than half a degree apart. That's pretty good. And then what happens is Jupiter's kind of going up. It's kind of passing by everybody. And then eventually on the 25th, the morning of October 25th, Jupiter and Venus are really close to each other. And depending on your setup, you might be able to get them in one picture, but I think that's going to be a stretch. But I'm sure Lane would be able to figure out a way to do that. But yeah, so Venus, Jupiter, and Mars are going to be very high in the sky in the morning. In fact, here at 6:05, not even sunrise, and it's already about 30 degrees up. And by actual sunrise, Venus and Jupiter are about 45 degrees high, which is pretty good. That's halfway up the sky. That's pretty good. Let's go back to about 6:15. So Jupiter and Mars are there, and then for the rest of the month, Jupiter keeps traveling up, and Venus gets pretty close to Mars. So if you're actually thinking ahead, I do that sometimes. November 2nd, Venus and Mars are going to be right next to each other. It looks like about 2 degrees apart or something like that. But yeah, so that's what we got going on for the planets, which is pretty neat. So let me head back to October 1st, and let's talk about the events for the month, using the moon as our guidepost. So really, let's see, October 1st, let's go to sunset, and let's look to, well, don't even really need to look to the west. Anyway, let's go to the 4th, sorry, October 4th, and October 4th we have the last quarter moon. You won't be able to see it until about 1 a.m., midnight 1 a.m., and that is going to be visible into the morning, okay? But it's the left half of the moon being lit up. And not much really happens between then and a couple days later, about, let's see, watch the moon. Oh, there we go. We already talked about this. October 8th and 9th, you've got that close encounter between the moon, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. So again, on the 8th, you'll see the moon above Venus. And then on the 9th, the moon will be in between Venus and Jupiter right next to Mars. And then, as you've been noticing maybe, is that the moon is getting thinner and thinner and closer to the horizon, closer and closer to the sun. And then eventually on October 12th, we have our darkest skies, which is the new moon. That's when we get the switch over. The moon now becomes a sunset object. So I'm going to look west around sunset. Remember, Saturn's off in that direction. And I'm going to keep going a couple more days. Oh, there's the moon. You might be able to see a little sliver of it. There's the moon getting close to Saturn. And boom, on the 16th, the moon is close to Saturn. Now, I guess technically you could say it's kind of close on the 15th, but it's closer on the 16th. And so you see the moon up here, Saturn down here, and actually right over there is Antares in Scorpius, which is also pretty neat to see. But you can see that as well. If you're having trouble finding Saturn, the 16th is a good night to go out because the moon will be nearby, and that tends to be easier to see. And yeah, okay. So then throughout the month, the next 2 days, the moon gets thicker and higher, still a crescent. And one thing to note, on the 18th, that's when Mars and Jupiter will be close together. So if you want to go out on the 18th, you have to go out in the morning, look to the east, and you'll see Mars and Jupiter close together. Okay? But we're not going to do that. We're going to go back to sunset and look toward the west. Okay? Maybe southwest, south. And so 2 days later, October 20th, we have the first quarter moon. It's when the right half of the moon is lit up, and you'll see that from well, even into the afternoon maybe, but that's going to be visible from basically until midnight, because midnight is when it sets. Now, what's also going on October 20th to the 22nd is the Orionid meteor shower. Now, it is technically active all month. excuse me, and it could do 20 fast meteors per minute. I'm sorry, no, not per minute, per hour. So it's something to get out for. I wouldn't put your greatest effort into it. But if you do actually go out on the mornings, because it is a waxing gibbous moon, first quarter waxing gibbous moon. So you kind of have to wait for the moon to set, right? So even on the 22nd, let's go night of the 21st in the morning of the 22nd. The moon is going to be setting, let's see, around 1 a.m. So if you get out after 1 a.m. but before sunrise, you can go out and maybe see an Orionid or two. And just remember, you want to look at the entire sky. I mean, the radiant is in Orion. That's where they appear to be coming from. So they would go from Orion, typically in the club up here, go one way or the other way, but they all seem to come from this spot. So you don't want to look at Orion. You want to look at the whole sky, as much of the sky as you can. Also, make sure you dress in multiple layers, bring hot chocolate, and adapt your eyes to the dark. That's super important. But anyway, I think I'm getting up to 10 minutes, so I should probably keep this moving. 25th, October 25th, you have an almost full moon, but the important part about the 25th is if you look in the morning, that's when Jupiter and Venus are super close to each other. And also, 2 days after that, October 27th, that's when you have the full moon, a nice full moon. In fact, if we looked at it around sunset, the full moon would be rising in the east pretty much right away, and it's visible the entire night. So those are the events. Really, it's just the planetary dance in the morning. It's the Orionid meteor shower. So one last thing is I wanted to quick talk about constellations. Let me just show you in general what's going on. So let's go to October 15th and let's go to sunset. What you notice is that around sunset, but let's go to about 8 o'clock, that's when it's finally dark, you will still be able to see Cygnus, Lyra, and Aquila, the summer constellations, but they're more toward the west. And so what's going to happen is they're going to start setting, okay? But by around midnight, you'll start seeing, or you will see in the south, you'll see Pegasus and Andromeda. Those are the fall constellations. They're fall constellations because they are up high around midnight in the fall. And then over here in the east, on a typical night, around midnight, you'll start seeing Orion start to come up and look like a wonderful bow tie. And it will continue to move across the sky and get higher and higher all the way into the morning. Okay, and really that's about it for the month of October. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I hope you get out in the morning to actually see the planetary dance. And I wish you very clear, dark skies for the month of October.